Hello everyone! I am Alice of KHR Arts and Cloud Orchid Publishing, and today I am going to talk to y'all about my experience at the Chicago Steampunk Expo. This particular event was actually really local for me. It was based out of Schaumburg, so it was a fairly short drive for me, which was really nice, and I really needed an easy, accessible convention for this weekend because unfortunately, the Thursday before the event started, I lost Squishy. I'll spare you the details because honestly, it was horrific. I've also already posted about it on all of my platforms, but the short of it is that I woke up at 2:30 in the morning and Squishy couldn't breathe. He was in terrible distress. We took him to the emergency vet. Things escalated so quickly and we had to say goodbye. It was very tough, and that meant that this weekend was very tough for me, and unfortunately, due to my grief and exhaustion and just overall doing my best, I didn't capture everything that I wanted. I learned a lot from this event, so I imagine the next event is going to be even bigger and better than this one. But for this particular event, Neil and I had been planning this event for several months now. And a big part of the reason is because this was our first big event, meaning that this is the first time that we officially had a 10-foot by 10-foot booth, and that we were going to be properly filling the space. Some of the preparation that I had to do for this event was that I had to, in advance, buy extra tables so that we would have enough tables to fill the space. Because previously, I only had 4 tables, and all of my tables are 4 foot long. So I had to go out and buy 2 more, so that I had a total of 6. And I also had to buy more book racks for displaying the books. I previously had 2 large ones and 1 small one. So I also went ahead and ordered 2 more for a total of 4 large racks and 1 small rack. And then just a lot of different odds and ends just to make sure that we had everything that we needed for the booth, such as more tablecloths, more decorations, just more odds and ends that we needed in order to make the space work. We both also needed to order extra book inventory just to make sure we were covered for everything because it was a larger event. And then also, of course, the costuming for the event. So this particular event is a steampunk event, and each year they have a different theme. This year's theme was Nostafaru at the World's Fair. So this year's theme was vampire themed, and we were both very excited to get on board with that. So both of us also did a lot of preparation for our costumes. I ordered a lot of new accessories and just extra pieces to just make existing outfits that I already had even more grand. And oh my goodness, y'all, they were so grand. I was so proud of the looks that I did for this weekend, and I'm just so happy with the way that all of that turned out. I'm so proud of the way that the booth turned out. I'm so proud of the way that our outfits turned out. Overall, I think all things considered, it was a really successful weekend. One of the things that I did learn from this weekend, as you can see from me packing the car here, is that we definitely need to rethink how we pack and transport things to events going forward. Because for our 2025 convention schedule, we do want to expand out into the greater Midwest. And that means that both me and Neil are likely going to be riding in my Jeep together, which means all of our stuff all in one vehicle to save on gas and travel costs and all that. And that means making room for 2 humans and all of their stuff in one vehicle. For this particular event, I really struggled with packing my car. I had so much stuff that I had to bring. It was more stuff than I had ever had to bring to an event to this day. And I know going forward, it's only going to be more. And that's because I'm going to continue writing more books. So I'm going to have more stuff that I'm going to have to haul to the event. And my car was packed within an inch of its life. Truly. And load out was absolutely miserable. Neil and I really struggled with packing the car and trying to remember how exactly I packed the car loading in, and it was a mess. It was truly a mess. So going forward, we're going to have to figure out some of the logistics of how we're going to pack things in the future. One of my solutions that I really want to move forward with is getting a hitch installed on my Jeep and being able to rent a trailer in order to give us more space, and just so that the car isn't just packed in such an unsafe way, because let's be real, it was rather unsafe. And that's part of doing these conventions is, you know, having to figure out all the behind the scenes logistics in order to just participate in the event. And that's the part that a lot of people don't see, that a lot of people don't really think about, is that it's like, yeah, we both have so many books. We have to get them physically to and from the event in order to sell them. And honestly, at this point, that's starting to be a challenge. And going forward, I'm not 100% sure how we're going to solve this, but it is definitely something that we're going to be needing to test some logistics on. I also learned a lot with doing a booth setup of this size, with figuring out the physical layout of what works for us, figuring out what I want to change going forward, how to better display everything, how to better manage everything. For this particular event, I think that we did a really good job. We did a horseshoe style setup for the booth, but we had the end of the horseshoe be brought up forward. A lot of vendors that do the horseshoe method will have their back booths all the way to the wall, and then they'll have chairs in the corners, and that means that people can like come right up to them, and neither of us wanted that. We wanted there to still be an element of separation between us and the people that came into our booth. So we brought the end of the horseshoe forward so that we could sit behind that table and we could have space to store all of our stuff. And we feel that that worked really well for us because there was still plenty of space in the actual booth proper. It was still very accessible. There were several people who were differently abled in wheelchairs with walking assistance, and also people who were larger, people who had very large cosplays. Everyone was able to move around the booth, no problem. So it was really awesome that our setup worked really well for accessibility as well as for our own personal comfort. But all of that, of course, took a lot of planning. And then, of course, once we actually physically got there and started setting up, there was a lot of rearranging and figuring out the logistics in person. So this is a big part of working as a vendor, is just having to constantly tweak what you're doing, figure out how to make things more efficient, how to make things better, and all of that. And you can do all the planning in the world, and sometimes once you actually physically get there and see the space and you're in it, things can change very quickly in how you actually end up having your setup be. Thankfully, it wasn't very different from what we originally planned for, just a little bit of difference in how exactly we wanted the tables arranged, as well as we were very lucky that the venue was very flexible, and since we were right by the door, so we had a wall, we were able to put our tables a little bit further out than the blue tape since they were against the wall and not obstructing anything. So that was very generous of them to allow us to do that and just have just a little bit more space. One of the things that I didn't capture footage on that I am disappointed in, but honestly, I was just doing my best to get through the weekend, y'all. I had several grieving outbursts in private during the event, and I was very much lacking sleep due to everything that I dealt with on Thursday, and then as if I was going to get proper sleep Friday, and I had to be up really early because load-in started at 9 a.m. and I needed to pack my car and do my makeup and get out the door before that in order to get on the road and get there by 9 a.m. My original plan was to pack the car Thursday night so that my only responsibility was to do my makeup and get dressed and then head out Friday morning. But of course, that is not how things played out due to the tragedy with Squishy, and I pretty much spent all of Thursday just grieving and dealing with that, which was really, really helpful going forward into the weekend, that I was able to get a lot of that really hard grieving out of my system and just the really bad outbursts out of my system. I was able to have a lot more self-control. Like I said, there were still a lot of grieving outbursts over the weekend, but I was able to contain them until I was able to do them in private. It was still really hard. It was still really painful. It still is very painful. Today is Thursday, the following Thursday, 1 week later, and it's still really hard, but I feel that I was a trooper and I did the absolute best that I could have done for this event. That being said, like I said, I am disappointed that I did not record most of the makeup for my looks, as well as getting dressed for my looks. I also forgot to get footage of driving to the event, driving home from the event. I forgot to get footage of loadout, and I also didn't get footage of wandering around and seeing everyone's amazing booths and cosplays and stuff, so I did miss a lot for footage during this event. I also didn't take as many pictures as I would have liked. Going forward, it's obviously going to be a lot easier to remember to get all these things because I won't be actively grieving while doing an event, but also there were a lot of things that I added to my to-do list for getting footage and photos for the event. Some things that I'm like, I really want to get this in the future, such as because my looks were so elaborate, after the fact, I kind of wish that I had gotten more photos of different angles of the cosplays, as well as I wish that I had taken some short video clips of just kind of doing a 360 around my cosplays, so I'm definitely going to be doing that with my elaborate looks in the future. I also want to try and do a better job of just remembering to get different aspects of footage going forward in the future, just because there is so much cool stuff at these events to capture, and the fact that I found that, unfortunately, despite the fact that I get stopped like every 5 seconds at events for people to take pictures of me, and there are typically a lot of photographers and videographers taking footage and photos of different aspects of the events. I never see any of this. I never see photos posted of me. I never see, like, you know, the big videos from the events and things like that. So it's basically, if I don't capture it, I'm never going to see it. So, you know, going forward, I'm definitely going to be more proactive in trying to make sure that I capture everything, because I know that if I don't, I will never see it, because I've done so many events at this point that they all just kind of blur together after a while. And part of the reason why capturing this footage is important is because I know that y'all enjoy this behind the scenes sneak peek and how all of this works, and a lot of newbie and even experienced authors learn a lot from this in seeing my mistakes, in seeing the things that I learn and seeing my growth and getting their own ideas for how they want to do events and things like that. So it's just really helpful all around. Plus, of course, you know, the vanity of it. I love looking back and seeing the work that we did at these different events. I love seeing my cosplays that I did, just all of that. I love looking back on that. So it's also a big part of it is for me too. There is no way that I could have done this event this weekend without Neil's help. He was an absolute trooper, and I am so lucky to have such an incredible supportive partner who not only supports me, but also supports my craft. And it also helps so much having a partner who is in the industry. The fact that Neil is also an author and that he regularly does conventions with or without me. So the fact that he is experienced in all of this, I don't have to tell him how to do things or what to do. He just intrinsically knows how to do these things. And the fact that he understands the logistics of what's important at an event and what's not important at an event and how to best help me. And then, of course, also him being my partner and him being supportive and him being there for my grief outbursts, him being there for me to help be supportive so that I had fewer grief outbursts, and just helping me to make the weekend go as smoothly as it possibly could. And with all of the chaos that happened over that weekend, I think this event went amazingly, really and for truly. With losing Squishy on Thursday, and then the fact that my best friend Brian and his wife Maria, they are currently in a fierce battle, battling his lymphoma just after him reaching remission in his head and neck cancer. That has been, goodness gracious, y'all, it's been a battle. And then receiving the call Sunday morning that at the same time that Squishy was dying, that Brian developed sepsis and coded. They were able to bring him back, but his plan going forward with battling his lymphoma is going to be very different, drastically different, because the chemo that they're doing right now is too aggressive, and it's quite frankly killing him. So going forward with that is going to be really tough, and my thoughts are with him, all the good vibes, but receiving that call Sunday morning and receiving some of the sensitive information that I did about that whole situation was also very hard. And just to paint the picture for y'all, I was in full regalia. Like, I was in my full outfit and in full face, just full face of makeup, in my full cosplay, just sitting on the hotel bed on this phone call, and just the absolute sheer will to not cry, y'all. Oh my goodness. It was overwhelming. It was a lot. So all of that I was dealing with that weekend, and also learning a lot doing our first 10 by 10 event. Goodness, it was a journey. It was a journey. And I especially want to thank all of our friends that were at the event, such as Brendan Detzner and Deborah Olson, and oh my goodness, Silver Sark surprised me. I was not aware she was attending this event, so that was absolutely incredible seeing her there, and just so many others that were at this event that provided me support and love and all the comfort that I needed. And I'm sorry, my voice is a little bit wonky in this video because I'm still at the point where talking about this is hard, and so I'm also trying not to cry while recording this, so please take this with a little bit of grain of salt. I'm just truly, really, truly all doing my best here. But having all that support from our friends and having just that understanding from the events, because I did let the event know, like, hey, I'm having a really hard time and I'm going to be doing the best that I can this weekend, but, you know, anything that the event could do for me in order to make this easier, I also let them know that, and they were really awesome about it. The other vendors were really awesome about it. They were really understanding and empathetic. And so just having all of that overwhelming support and just having an amazing community where, you know, we're all people and they understand that we're all in this together. Because the mistake that some people make doing these conventions is that they think it's a competition, that they start worrying about how many sales is my neighbor getting versus how many sales I'm getting. How many people are coming up to my booth versus how many people are coming up to their booth. And with this event, there was a mix of all different vendors. There were other authors, but there were also artists and clothing designers and accessory creators and just everything that you could think of. It was just, there were so many different people. There was even a lamp maker, like making custom beautiful stained glass lamps and things. So just first of all, other types of people are not my competition. Like, you know, the lamp maker is not my competition. The artist is not my competition. But in the same way, other authors are not my competition, in that there are so many different genres that everyone writes in. And then on top of that, you have your own way of writing your books, and people have different things that they like to read. People have different styles that they like to read. And so truly, I feel like even other authors are not my competition, because people are going to read what they want to read. And for instance, someone who reads hard sci-fi space opera stuff is not going to come up to my booth anyway, because I don't have anything like that. Whereas if somebody likes, you know, dark vampire fantasy, they're absolutely going to come up to my booth and check out, you know, my book Succumb to Darkness. Or if they are really into romance that, you know, comes in a full series, they're going to come up to my booth. So that's the way that you have to think about it, is that the other vendors at the event are not your competition, and to be supportive of one another, because honestly, the event goes so much easier and it's so much more fun when you treat the other vendors as your friends and your neighbors and not your competition. And we got really lucky at this event in that we got some really awesome booth neighbors. Our booth neighbor to our right was an artist, and she had really amazing designs. I'll put her information in the description below, and I'll put it on the screen here. But she sold really cool paintings and prints and little buttons and some other little doodads and like little mushroom terrariums and stuff. So it was just so cute seeing all her designs and seeing all the people who were excited about her pieces. And then of course also she was just a really nice person, and her booth mate was also really nice, and they were just so entertaining and just kept things so upbeat the whole convention, which also really helped me to have fewer grief outbursts. Is that that, you know, she was just so excitable and so fun and talked to us a lot. So all of that really helped to just keep me moving forward, keep me distracted, keep the mood light, just all of that. So having really good booth neighbors is also really helpful in an event. And a great way to also increase your chances of having good booth neighbors is be a good booth neighbor yourself. Is, you know, be considerate of the people around you, be willing to compromise on stuff, be willing to reach out and be like, hey, hello, I'm so-and-so, how are you? We're gonna be booth neighbors, you know, da-da-da. Make friends, because that's what these events are about, is it's not just purely selling your stuff, it's also about networking, making those connections, because you never know how they may be helpful in the future, as well as it's really common in convention circuits. You're going to see a lot of the same people over and over again, and you're just gonna have a better time if you make friends with those people rather than seeing them as your competition and being a Grumposaurus the entire time. A big part of what helped with this particular setup at this event that we will definitely be utilizing going forward is that Neil and I made sure that we had separation of our books. And in the past at events, we have always tried to do a good job of having separation of our books in putting them on opposite ends of our setups and things like that in order to help with people trying to navigate who wrote what and what kind of books are available and things like that. Having them literally on opposite sides of the booth like this really helped. So the entire wall part of the setup was all my books, and then the opposite side of tables were all of Neil's books, with the exception of my poetry books being right next to where we were sitting at the end of the horseshoe at the booth. Having this kind of separation made it a lot easier for us to be able to guide people to our books, as well as it also really helped with customer flow, in that there are people who specifically come to these events because they are either a fan of my work or they are specifically a fan of Neil's work, and being able to determine that and then guide them to that side of the booth so that then they also were out of the way, so that then people who were the opposite could then go on the opposite end, and it just really helped with that flow and being able to gauge the interest of people and knowing who needed to talk to who and all of that. It also helped with the overlapping conversations, in that there were a lot of instances where both Neil and I were talking to people at the same time, and being able to properly talk to people about our books without it being too confusing really helped with the way that we set this up. I also really loved having all of my books displayed in the big book racks, as opposed to the way that I have displayed my books in the past with the easels and stacking them up and stuff like that. And a big part of this is because I'm at the point where I literally just have so many books that having them spread out in stacks and easels just doesn't really work very well anymore. I have too many, and I've noticed that once you get to a certain point of having so many books, that people are nervous to pick them up because they don't want to mess up your setup. So having them in the book racks like that, I think, was also a big win for me at this event in encouraging people to pick up the books and look at them. With Neil's setup, because he is still currently in a battle with getting all of his titles released from his old publisher and getting them under his new publisher and just figuring out the logistics of that, he didn't have as much product on hand as I did. But going forward in the future, we're also going to be working on the logistics of his setup as well, just so that he can also have all of his wares displayed and accessible the same way that mine are. We were also really excited that he was able to debut his new tabletop game, Army Men. And as he likes to say, the most expensive part of the game is the book. And the book itself is not even that expensive. The joke is that all of the minis that you need for this game are literally all the toys that you can find at the dollar store, like little army men, little bugs, little aliens, stuff like that. So it's the idea of he wanted to create a game that was really financially accessible for people, as well as just really tongue-in-cheek playing on that old nostalgia of playing with those little cheap toys, playing with the little green army men, all that kind of stuff. So it's a really cool game. The artwork for the book is absolutely amazing and was done by one of his artist friends who is really talented. And we had so much interest. There were so many people that came by and looked at it and bought it this weekend. So I was just really excited that his big game debut went really well for this weekend. And that's the other thing that you can't really prepare for events like this, is that events are going to go the way that they go, no matter how much you plan and no matter what your expectations are. For this weekend, I really thought I was going to sell a ton of my Succumb to Darkness books because of the vampire theme. And so I had ordered extra inventory to compensate for that, to make sure that I had enough for all the people that would be interested. And funny enough, I did sell a few copies of Succumb to Darkness, but my big sellers that weekend, the things that people were really interested in, were actually my art books and my poetry books. I sold 2/3 of my books were art books and poetry books that weekend, and that almost never happens. And it's just always funny when you are done with an event, looking back and doing book inventory and all that, and just seeing what was the lead seller at a particular event. It sometimes is just so out of left field, and there's no way that you could have predicted that that would be the case. And this weekend was definitely one of those instances where never in my wildest dreams would I have predicted, oh yeah, all of my art books and poetry, that's what everybody's going to be interested in. That's what everybody's going to be snapping up. And we're talking people were like buying multiple books at a time of my art books and my poetry books. And I even had one person who came up to the booth and bought more books the next day. So it was a pleasant surprise, and it was just really interesting seeing that that was the particular trend for this event. And that's the other thing, is that even the same event going the next year or a few years down the line, you can never necessarily predict what's going to do well at that event, because in a year's time, people's tastes could change and maybe there's something else that they're really interested in, and a different book or book series could become really, really popular. So it's always good to keep that in mind, that while it's really good to make sure that you're prepared for what you predict will be popular and sell well at an event, make sure that you're not neglecting your other products, because you never know what zeitgeist could take hold and what things could become popular and sell really well at that event that you weren't expecting. Load-in actually went pretty smoothly for this event. The only struggle was that because it was an official hotel, it was the Hyatt Regency, they had a big loading dock style for loading into the event, and it was this big ramp, and the ramp was pretty steep, and so that really was a detriment for me for this weekend. And by the end of it, I was getting pretty physically disabled. I was in a lot of pain. Monday and Tuesday after the event, I was in a lot of pain. Walking around was really hard, and a big part of that was lugging all of our stuff up and down that really steep ramp, doing load in and load out from the dealer's hall. So that was really tough to deal with. However, I am glad that we decided to do the dealer's hall, which they dubbed the underground market, instead of the artist alley or the printer's row, because that room was upstairs. And I'm sure they had some sort of logistics for being able to get your stuff in there without going up the actual stairs, which I suspect had a lot to do with the elevator. And all of that would have just been so much more of a nightmare to deal with than just an awful, steep, horrible ramp. So we definitely made the right choice there, as well as we made the right choice in that the Printer's Row and Artist Alley, each vendor only had one table. And mind you, those tables were much larger than typical event tables. I think they were something like 6 feet long, which was really nice because a lot of events have been kind of skimping lately and reducing table sizes, to the point that I was interested in doing an event and I found out that their table size is you only get one singular table and it's only 4 feet. And I was like, I'm sorry, no, that's not going to work. But yeah, we are so beyond being able to be a one table vendor setup. There's too much stuff. It just would not be worth it for us. So we definitely made the right decision with having a larger booth setup, and also with the logistics of where it was located in the convention was just so much easier than having to deal with the stairs that led up to the artist alley and Printer's Row. We did go up and visit so that we could see our friends and so that we could see what the other vendors had, and it was gorgeous. Everyone did a really great job of decorating their booths and the setup and everything. I feel like the whole event was very whimsical, that everyone did a really great job of putting everything together. Everyone had amazing cosplays on. I just feel that it was everyone was on theme. Everyone did their best to make sure to make the event as immersive as possible, because I have been to a lot of events where they've had specific themes, and then very few of the vendors actually get into the theme. And that's always disappointing when that happens, because, I feel like it's like, if you're not going to be on board with the theme, it's kind of like, why are you here? Sort of thing. If you're not adding to the fun and the whimsy, it kind of takes it out of character for the people that are attending the event and being part of it. And I've also noticed that you'll do better as a vendor if you are participating in the theme and adding to the whimsy. So it really truly is to your benefit to participate in that. They also had a third vendor option, which was called the hallway vendors, and it was just random tables all throughout the different hallways in the hotel. And again, I'm really glad we didn't sign up for that, because they were, again, single tables, so not enough space, but then also just having tables just kind of randomly in different parts of the hotel. There were definitely tables that we passed by that it was obvious that those vendors were getting zero traffic due to where they were located, and the fact that other than their table being there just wasn't anything else in that area. There wasn't anything to draw people to go over to that part of the hotel other than just wandering around. And that's a thing that does bother me about some events, is that just in order to have as many vendors as possible, because honestly, that's kind of the bread and butter for a lot of events, is the cost that vendors have to pay in order to be part of the event. That covers a lot of the costs of running the convention. So a lot of them will shove as many vendors as they can as possible. And I don't care for events that do this, where they do it to the detriment of the vendors, where they'll put them in like the nosebleed section where they get no traffic. It just seems awkward for the event, and it discourages the vendors, and it just doesn't seem worth it to me. So that was one of my few criticisms about this event, is I didn't like seeing vendors that it was very obvious that they were getting no traffic, and I felt bad for them. And I think that's a thing that conventions need to realize, is that, while yes, they need to make money in order to keep the event alive and keep it going, vendors are the ones that make the event. We make the event happen. Without vendors being at the event, there are a lot of people that wouldn't go to the event. There are people that go to these events just to go shopping. So, be kind to your vendors, make sure that, they're well taken care of, and that, they're in areas where they're going to at least get some traffic, have other attractions and reasons for people to make sure that they visit all of the different vendors that the event has to offer. A big factor in the events that Neil and I have been doing for the past few years is that we are officially at the point where we always stay on location at the hotel, and we make sure that we either stay in the hotel that is the event proper, or we stay at one of the adjoining hotels, so that there's as little walking to and fro the event as possible. And a big part of this is due to travel logistics, in that he lives in Indiana and I live in the suburbs of Illinois, that we can't do the commuting back and forth each morning and night. That's just not something that we can do, especially with going in full cosplay and being vendors, with how early the vendors hall opens and then typically how late the vendors halls stay open. And it's just part of the cost, which is also why we've been doing fewer events each year, is just because of the total cost of that. It's not just the cost of the table and the badge fees and all of that stuff. It's also the cost of getting the hotel too. And in a lot of cases, the hotel is either 100% of the same cost that everything being the vendor is, or it's even more expensive than that. I would say at this event, the hotel cost was 2.5 times the cost of all of the aspects of being a vendor. So the table fee, the badge fees, all of the like tables and the racks that I needed to buy, the extra inventory and all of that cost, the hotel was still 2.5 times more expensive than all of that. Hotels are so expensive these days. And that's even with the discounted rate that we got booking the hotel through the vendor block that the event negotiated for us, which was awesome. There are a lot of events that don't have those block rates where it's just, you know, get a hotel room and it's whatever. And then it's even more expensive. So having to, you know, figure out the logistics of all these expenses is also a big part of navigating which events that we're willing to do, which events that we're going to repeat in the future, and just having the funds to be able to save up for all of this stuff. So all of that is important to consider in scheduling out your circuit, is that hotels are expensive, but also considering travel. How far away are you? Are you going to be physically able to commute back and forth, or are you going to have to just bite the bullet and get the hotel? Part of this is also with my growing disability that I just can't do commuting back and forth. I need the ease of just being on site at the event the whole time. And then also with my cosplays and everything like that, it's just so much easier to just have everything there, having access to everything at all times, having a room that we can go back up to and rest at if we need to, and all of that. At this event, there was also a lot of ordering food to be delivered to us, which thank goodness that we live in a day and age where we have so many options for food to be delivered to us. So that was also a big help. And it was also really, really funny seeing the delivery people, you know, trying to find us, and then we're like, hey, we're over here, and they're like, wow, this is the craziest getup I've ever seen. So that was a really fun aspect of doing this weekend too, was just having the delivery people just absolutely bemused by our outfits. And it was so much fun putting together these outfits. Neil and I planned them together. We actually had a whole weekend where I brought all of my stuff out. Well, not like all of my belongings, but all of the different outfits that I was considering for this weekend. And then we went through them and planned them out together. And another big cheat that I learned that really helped with this event was that as we were planning the outfits, I put them on fully, like I put everything on, and then I took pictures of it, which really helped with the fact that I was grieving and I was going through so much. I didn't have the headspace to remember exactly everything that I had planned for all of the outfits. Having those pictures really helped me with being like, oh yeah, this is going to go with this outfit, this is going to go with that outfit, blah, blah, blah. So I really highly recommend that if you don't have like a regular rotation of these are the cosplays that I wear all the time, if you have, you know, new outfits that you do at events the way that I do, it's a big help to just put them all on ahead of time and take pictures of exactly how you want it to be, and then have those pictures for when you're actually at the event. Because honestly, even if I wasn't grieving and wasn't going through all the stuff that I was going through, events are still so stressful. There is so much that you're thinking about. There's so much going on. It's so easy to forget stuff. It's so easy to get confused about what you're supposed to be doing, and just having less mental load will just help immensely. Another aspect of the event that I didn't get footage or pictures of that I'm disappointed with is that I did a reading of my vampire novel, Succumb to Darkness, in the tea room, and it went really, really well. I was really proud of it. It was really fun. It was so cool doing it on Saturday in my most epic event, my vampire Marie Antoinette outfit. I just felt like it was just everything was perfect about it, and I'm just really disappointed that it wasn't documented. So going forward, I am going to be figuring out logistics to better capture my panels and my readings and things like that to document those things. And I also was really excited that we did schedule one mini event during the convention. I signed me and Neil up to do the Lolita Tea Party. There were several tea party slots that weekend, and some of them were specifically tea parties with the special guests. And because I wasn't particularly a fan of either of the guests, not anything negative, just that I quite frankly didn't know who they really were, and they were not a priority on my radar, I made sure that I got tickets that were more for the general tea parties rather than like the special event tea parties, because I'm of the belief that if you're not a fan of the thing, then you shouldn't take up a seat, that you should allow the people who actually care about that to have that seat. You know, don't just take up that seat just for clout. But I was so excited about the tea party, and it was so much fun. And it turned out that one of Neil's friends also booked a ticket for the same tea party. So we all sat at the same table with some of the other people that were participating in the tea party, and we just had an absolute blast. And it was really nice to have a bit of a break from all the craziness that it is to work as a vendor at a convention. And of course, I had a separate tea outfit for that day. I wore my Marie Antoinette outfit earlier in the day, and then I changed into my tea outfit for the tea party. And then later on in the evening, I changed back into my Marie Antoinette outfit for the parties. But this tea party was so much fun. It was run through the hotel. They catered it. I was a little bit disappointed that our friend Sam, that his tea company wasn't able to do the tea for the event, just because all the catering had to be done through the hotel because of contracts and all that. But it was really good. It was really fun. Oh my goodness, there was so much food. I was not expecting there to be so much food. I thought it was going to be kind of like a snack sort of thing, but it was like a full tea service with like, there were fruit dishes, there were cookies, there were pastries, there were sandwiches. Like it was so much food. We were so full. And they also had little party favors. I was not expecting that. That was really fun. And because we specifically booked the Lolita Tea Party, there was also, of course, a huge photo shoot with me and all the other girls that were dressed up. So that was really, really fun. I haven't seen the photos yet from the event, but because it was a professional photo shoot part of the event, I expect to see those photos, you know, maybe next week or the week after that, because they are going to be professionally edited. They're not just general event photos that you just take them and then you just, you know, throw them up on Facebook. Like these were like, you know, professional photos with like speed lights and stuff like that. So I know that the, you know, photographer vendors that were handling that, they're taking their time with editing the photos, and I'm sure those will be released later on, and I'll definitely be sharing those once I have access to them, because I think they turned out really fun and really cute. And I met so many great people at this event this weekend, in addition to being able to see so many great friends. And I had a really great time despite everything that was going on. And we're definitely going to be doing the Chicago Steampunk Expo again in the future. We're already in the process of signing up for the 2025 event. And we're also going to be looking at getting what we're calling new blood into our convention schedule going forward for the rest of 2024, and then also building out 2025, is that Neil and I discovered this weekend, because we did really, really well this weekend, and we were kind of examining, well, why did we do really, really well this weekend compared to other events that we've done last year? And the conclusion that we came to was that this was a new audience. I hadn't done this event since 2019, and 2019 was my first time doing this event, and Neil has never done this event. So there were so many people that are regulars on this particular con circuit doing the steampunk conventions that we just didn't previously have access to. And we found that that's really the missing puzzle piece right now, is that we both feel like we've really exhausted the current circles at the events that we've been regularly going to, that pretty much everybody that goes to those events that we've been going to in the past already knows us and already owns all of our books. And so we need to start finding new conventions with new audiences so that we can continue to grow and continue to gain new fans and sell our books to more people, quite frankly. So that is a thing that we're going to be doing. We are limiting it right now to just the greater Midwest due to my growing disability, due to finances and logistics, and we just aren't ready yet for doing something like, you know, going all the way out to Dragon Con or going all the way out to Comic-Con, way far away states like Georgia or California or, you know, New York or whatever. On top of that, we're also not at the point of doing really massive events like those either. Like, we are not financially and or mentally in a place right now to be able to handle doing massive conventions like that where you have like 10,000 people. We're just not at that point yet. If there are local Midwest events that you are a part of or that you would love to invite us to, please do leave them in the comments below. I would love to hear all about them, but we are looking forward to adding some new conventions to our roster. So I hope y'all enjoyed this video. We had just an absolute blast at the Chicago Steampunk Expo, and we can't wait to participate again next year. And I'm just so excited to see what's going to be next for us on the horizon and the different events that we have in store. So thank y'all so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give it a like. And if you're new, subscribe. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.